The day the sky changed. Dr. Rex Harrison never expected his morning coffee to be interrupted by the end of the world. Then again, he never expected a lot of things in life, like how 3 PhDs in engineering would lead him to running a junkyard instead of working in some fancy research lab. But there he was, watching a massive hologram of a purple squid-faced alien hovering over every major city on Earth, its tentacles writhing against the morning sky like nature's most unsettling screensaver. Primitive species of Earth, the alien announced with what Rex swore was a smirk. Did squid even have the facial muscles to smirk? Your planet has been selected for immediate integration into the galactic hegemony. Surrender within one planetary rotation or face immediate annihilation. Rex took another sip of his coffee, more annoyed than terrified. Really? Immediate annihilation? That's the best threat they could come up with. Not even spectacular obliteration or fancy space kaboom. As the world erupted into chaos around him, Rex couldn't help but notice something odd about the alien ships hovering above the cities. There was a peculiar shimmer to their hulls, reminiscent of the heat distortion you see above hot asphalt on a summer day. But there was something else, something in the way their surfaces reflected light that seemed oddly familiar. His eyes wandered to an old microwave casing lying in his yard, catching the morning sun at just the right angle. The reflection pattern was almost identical to the alien ships above. Most people would dismiss this as coincidence or the effects of too much caffeine, but when you've spent 20 years studying materials engineering before choosing to become the king of Trash Mountain, you notice these things. The world's response to the alien ultimatum was exactly what you'd expect from a species that still couldn't agree on whether pineapple belonged on pizza. China launched their newest hypersonic missiles, which the alien ships casually used as interstellar party streamers. Russia's premier pounded his desk and demanded the aliens respect Earth's sovereignty, because that always works so well. The US president tried to tweet a declaration of war, only to discover the aliens hadn't bothered creating social media accounts. Meanwhile, Rex's phone was blowing up with messages from old colleagues, fellow engineers, scientists, and researchers he'd collaborated with over the years. They'd noticed the same thing he had about the alien ship's hull properties. Dr. Chen from MIT was the first to call. "Rex, tell me you're seeing what I'm seeing," Chen's voice crackled through the speaker. "The way their ships interact with electromagnetic radiation, it's like our failed experimental satellite shield from 15. The one that accidentally fried every pigeon within a mile radius." Rex couldn't help but grin. "I thought we agreed never to speak of that again." "Yeah, well, impending alien invasion tends to make old promises irrelevant. Have you contacted Professor Patel yet?" "Working on it. Get to my junkyard as fast as you can. Bring coffee and your weird ideas." By sunset, Rex's office looked like a cross between a university lab and a caffeine addict support group. Monitors cobbled together from salvaged parts displayed various analyses of the alien ship's properties. Dr. Rodriguez from Mexico City was examining the microwave casing that had caught Rex's attention earlier, while Professor Patel from Mumbai was furiously scribbling equations on a whiteboard salvaged from a defunct elementary school. "The resonance patterns," Patel muttered, circling a particular formula. "They're using a cascading field effect. It's essentially the same principle we've been stumbling upon in various failed experiments over the years. Failed experiments that are about to become humanity's greatest success story," Rex added, pulling up more comparison data on his screens. "Look at this, every major technological breakthrough we've made in the past 50 years has accidentally brushed against the principles their technology operates on. We just never put it all together because who looks for advanced alien tech in a broken microwave?" Chen finished, laughing. As night fell over the junkyard, the group had established a secure communication network using modified ham radio equipment and outdated cell phones. They called themselves the Junk Science Alliance, because sometimes the best way to hide a revolution is to make it sound like a recycling program. Their first major breakthrough came from an unexpected source, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Dr. Wong, a marine biologist turned materials scientist, pointed out that it wasn't just the world's biggest environmental disaster, it was also the largest collection of weather-tested polymers and metals on Earth. Think about it, Wong explained over their cobbled-together conference call system. We've got millions of tons of materials that have been stress-tested by salt water, UV radiation, and chemical exposure for decades. It's the world's biggest unintentional materials science experiment. The alien ships continued their intimidating hover over Earth's major cities, their crews probably laughing at the primitive species scrambling below. They had no way of knowing that their biggest mistake wasn't underestimating humanity's military might, it was underestimating humanity's garbage. While governments worldwide continued their futile shows of force, a different kind of resistance was taking shape in junkyards, garages, and abandoned warehouses across the globe. Engineers, scientists, and that weird guy who builds robots out of washing machines were all joining forces, sharing ideas through encrypted channels disguised as online gaming forums. The real genius of their plan lay in its apparent stupidity. The aliens were monitoring for advanced technology, unusual energy signatures, or military buildups. Nobody thought to monitor global sales of broken toasters or the sudden interest in collecting old satellite dishes. As Rex stood in his junkyard that night, watching the alien ships glitter like oversized Christmas ornaments, he couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best weapon isn't the biggest gun, it's the pile of junk nobody thought was worth a second glance. And humanity had just been given something far more dangerous than any weapon, a deadline. The first phase of their plan was already in motion. Social media influencers worldwide had started the hashtag Trash Challenge, encouraging their followers to collect specific types of recyclable materials, actually components needed for their secret project. Teenagers thought they were participating in an environmental movement, they were actually helping build Earth's first junkyard fleet. As midnight approached, Rex sent out a message to the growing network of resistance fighters, time to show the galaxy why humans are the ultimate dumpster divers. Tomorrow, we start turning trash into treasure. The aliens had given humanity 24 hours to surrender. Instead, they'd given Earth's greatest minds the deadline they needed to prove why you should never underestimate a species that turns sand into computer chips. The race to save Earth was on, and the starting line was in a junkyard. Engineering the impossible. The great thing about the end of the world is how it cuts through bureaucracy. Within hours of Rex's initial message, junkyards worldwide had transformed into covert research and development centers. The challenge wasn't just building spaceships from scratch, it was building them from scratch while making it look like business as usual. Camouflage is key, Dr. Chen explained during their first global coordination meeting, held through a network of modified ham radios and repurposed game consoles. The aliens are watching for any sign of organized resistance. We need to hide our work in plain sight. That's how Operation Art Attack was born. Junkyards across the globe began advertising themselves as venues for post-apocalyptic art installations. Every major component of their developing fleet was disguised as an art piece, complete with pretentious descriptions that made absolutely no sense, the perfect cover. This piece, Rex explained to a curious alien probe, gesturing to what was actually a prototype propulsion system, represents humanity's struggle with consumer culture through the lens of postmodern industrialism. The toilet seat bolted to the side is a commentary on societal waste. The probe moved on, clearly deciding that human art was beyond its comprehension. Score 1 for deliberately bad art descriptions. The technical challenges were enormous. Building spaceships from scrap meant rethinking every aspect of aerospace engineering. Traditional materials were out of the question, they had to work with what they had, which meant getting creative. Professor Patel's team discovered that old satellite dishes, when modified with parts from microwave ovens and defunct cell phone towers, could be transformed into surprisingly effective energy weapons. They dubbed them kitchen sink cannons because, well, they literally used kitchen sinks as part of the cooling system. The beauty of it, Patel explained during a late-night session, is that we're basically building advanced technology using the same principles as their ships, but with materials so primitive they don't register as threats on their scans. The breakthrough in propulsion came from an unlikely source: abandoned amusement park rides. Dr. Rodriguez discovered that the electromagnetic systems used in modern roller coasters could be modified to create gravitational field manipulators. The first successful test took place in an abandoned theme park in Ohio, disguised as a performance art piece called The Rise of Human Spirits. The centrifugal force generators from these rides, Rodriguez explained, already operate on principles similar to artificial gravity. We just had to scale up the effect and reverse the polarity. Meanwhile, Dr. Wong's team was making progress with materials harvested from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Years of exposure to salt water and solar radiation had created unique polymer configurations that, when properly processed, demonstrated properties similar to the alien ship's hull material. "It's like nature did half our work for us," Wong commented during a test of their first hull panel. "These materials have been stress-tested by Earth's harshest conditions for decades. We couldn't have designed a better testing program if we tried." The real challenge was power generation. Traditional power sources would be instantly detected by alien scans. The solution came from thousands of failed solar panel prototypes that companies had thrown away over the years. Dr. Chen's team discovered that when combined in specific configurations, these failed panels could capture and store energy in ways their original designers never imagined. "It's not just about collecting solar energy," Chen explained, standing beside a tower of salvaged solar panels disguised as a modern art sculpture. These panels had various manufacturing defects that actually made them better at capturing different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. Combined properly, they're more efficient than anything currently in production. The project hit its first major snag when they needed to test their propulsion systems. You can't exactly fire up experimental spacecraft engines without drawing attention. The solution came from an unexpected source: the global gaming community. A team of indie game developers created a highly realistic space combat simulator that was actually a cover for testing their ship systems. Gamers worldwide thought they were beta testing the next big space game. In reality, they were helping fine-tune the control systems for humanity's junkyard fleet. The best part, Rex noted during a progress review, is that the aliens are watching millions of people play what they think is just a game. They have no idea they're watching their own defeat being rehearsed. The ships themselves were engineering marvels born of desperate creativity. The flagship, which Rex dubbed Garbage Disposal, was built primarily from parts of a defunct Ferris wheel. Its weapons officer station was an old dentist's chair, chosen specifically because it could pivot 360 degrees while maintaining perfect stability. "You built the navigation system out of what?" Professor Patel asked during an inspection. "Pinball machines," Rex grinned. "Think about it, they're already designed to track multiple objects, calculate trajectories, and respond to rapid changes. We just had to scale up the calculations a bit." Another vessel, nicknamed Dumpster Fire, used modified garbage compactors as its main defensive system. When tested, it could generate a compression field strong enough to crush incoming projectiles into diamonds, assuming the projectiles were actually solid matter. The computer systems posed another unique challenge. They needed processing power that could compete with alien technology while using hardware that wouldn't register on their scans. The solution came from thousands of discarded gaming consoles and smartphones. "Modern phones have more computing power than what we use to reach the moon," Dr. Chen explained. "Network enough of them together, add some quantum computing principles we accidentally discovered while trying to build better graphics cards, and suddenly you've got a system that can outthink alien tech." As the deadline approached, their operation had grown beyond anything they'd initially imagined. Every major junkyard on Earth had become a secret shipyard. Auto mechanics were secretly building engine components. Plumbers were retrofitting old pipes into coolant systems. Even kids with 3D printers were unknowingly contributing, printing what they thought were parts for an online engineering competition. The aliens had given humanity 24 hours to surrender, expecting to find a primitive species on its knees. Instead, they'd given Earth's brightest minds the deadline they needed to prove why humans were the galaxy's greatest innovators. With just hours remaining before the deadline, humanity's junkyard fleet was taking shape, hidden in plain sight among the world's discarded treasures. Rex stood in his command center, formerly his junkyard office, now filled with salvaged screens and jerry-rigged control systems, and watched the countdown timer they'd cobbled together from old digital billboards. In less than 12 hours, the aliens would return for Earth's surrender. Instead, they would face a fleet built from humanity's refuse, powered by human ingenuity, and driven by the most powerful force in the universe, the human ability to turn trash into triumph. All stations, he broadcast through their secure network, status report. Tomorrow, we show the galaxy why you should never underestimate a species that treats user manuals as gentle suggestions. The responses came in from around the world, each team reporting ready in their own way. Humanity's greatest gamble was about to begin, and the ante was nothing less than Earth itself. The 11th hour. Finding pilots for a secret fleet of spaceships built from garbage turned out to be exactly as challenging as it sounds. Traditional military pilots were out of the question, they were too closely monitored by the aliens. That's when Rex had his most bizarre idea yet: recruit from the professional gaming community. You want us to put the fate of Earth in the hands of people who play video games for a living? Dr. Chen asked, looking at Rex like he'd finally lost his mind. Think about it, Rex replied, pulling up profiles on their cobbled-together command center screens. We need people with lightning reflexes, the ability to process multiple information streams simultaneously, and most importantly, people who can think creatively when facing superior technology. Their first recruit was Sarah Deathblossom Chen, no relation to Dr. Chen, a 3-time international drone racing champion who also held world records in 12 different space combat simulators. When she walked into the junkyard, her first words were either "This is about the alien invasion," or "This is the worst setup for a gaming tournament I've ever seen." They found their weapons specialists in the competitive esports scene. Brothers Miguel and Carlos Rodriguez, again, no relation to Dr. Rodriguez, had made their name by calculating projectile trajectories and energy weapon cooldowns in their heads faster than most computers. Their first look at the kitchen sink cannons resulted in 3 immediate suggestions for improving their efficiency. "You're using old microwave magnetrons, right?" Miguel asked, examining the weapon systems. "If you modify the waveguide assembly with parts from defunct cell phone towers, you can double the energy output while having the cooldown time." The navigation team came from an even more unlikely source: drift racers. People who could calculate complex physics equations on the fly while controlling several tons of metal at high speeds turned out to be perfect for plotting courses through spacetime. Akiko Tanaka, known in Tokyo's underground racing scene as Physics Breaker, took one look at their pinball machine-based navigation system and immediately understood its potential. "It's like calculating a perfect line through a mountain pass," she explained, "except the mountain is moving, in space, and trying to kill you." Finally, a real challenge. Training these unconventional pilots required equally unconventional methods. They converted an abandoned warehouse into a simulation center using salvaged VR equipment and modified gaming chairs mounted on old carnival ride hydraulics. The entire setup was powered by a network of scrapped Bitcoin mining rigs that they'd reprogrammed to handle physics calculations. "This is better than any game I've ever played," Sarah commented during a training run, her VR headset cobbled together from 3 different generations of hardware. "Though the graphics could use some work. We're trying to save Earth, not win awards for visual effects," Rex replied, watching as she successfully executed a maneuver that their original calculations had deemed impossible. The real breakthrough in their training program came from an unexpected source: theme park engineers. A team of former Disney Imagineers figured out how to use modified ride systems to simulate zero-gravity conditions. They turned an abandoned water park into a covert training facility, disguising it as an interactive art installation called Waves of Change. Meanwhile, the technical teams were working around the clock to solve the remaining engineering challenges. One of the biggest problems was communication. Traditional radio waves would be easily detected and jammed by the aliens. The solution came from Dr. Wong's teenage daughter, who suggested using modified video game chat protocols. Online gamers have been figuring out how to communicate through bad connections and around censorship for years, she explained. Why not adapt those methods for our fleet? They ended up creating a communication system that piggybacked on global gaming traffic, hiding their tactical communications in what looked like millions of ordinary chat messages about quest rewards and spawn camping strategies. The weapons systems posed another unique challenge. Traditional ammunition was out of the question, they needed something the aliens wouldn't expect. The breakthrough came from an unlikely combination, old 3D printers and recycled plastic from the ocean. The plastic has been transformed by years of solar radiation and chemical exposure, Dr. Wong explained, examining a test projectile. When properly processed and printed, it creates structures that are nearly impossible for standard sensors to detect. They turned every 3D printing enthusiast on Earth into an unwitting ammunition manufacturer by releasing environmentally friendly designs that were actually components for their weapons systems. Makers worldwide printed millions of parts, thinking they were creating art pieces or household items. The final hours before the deadline were a blur of activity. Every junkyard turned shipyard was running final checks on their vessels. The global gaming network had been transformed into the fleet's nervous system, ready to coordinate their response while maintaining the appearance of normal gaming traffic. Rex stood in the command center of the garbage disposal, looking at the motley crew of gamers, racers, and engineers who represented humanity's last hope. The ship's interior looked like a cross between an arcade and a scrapyard, with repurposed game controllers serving as helm controls and weapon stations cobbled together from old arcade cabinets. Remember, he addressed the crew, everything we've built looks like junk because that's our greatest advantage. The aliens are expecting primitive technology because that's what their scans show. They're not looking for weapons built from garbage because, in their experience, that's impossible. Sarah sat at the helm, her controls set up a bizarre combination of racing wheel, VR controls, and modified dance pad. Just like the simulations, she muttered, though everyone knew the simulations hadn't come close to preparing them for what they were about to attempt. The weapons station was manned by the Rodriguez brothers, their station looking like someone had merged a pinball machine with a dentist's chair and thrown in parts from a dozen different game controllers. They were already calculating firing solutions, their hands moving across the controls with the same precision that had won them countless gaming tournaments. In junkyards and hidden facilities around the world, similar scenes were playing out. Humanity's improvised fleet was crewed by an army of gamers, hackers, and engineering misfits, all brought together by the most unlikely of circumstances. 6 hours until the deadline, Dr. Chen announced, monitoring their cobbled-together sensor network. Global Command Network is online, disguised as a new Battle Royale game launch. All ships report ready for power-up sequence. Rex looked at the main screen, actually 7 different TV displays jury-rigged together to create a single image. The alien ships were still hovering over Earth's major cities, their crews probably preparing for what they expected to be a simple surrender ceremony. Well, he addressed the Global Command channel, time to show them why you should never underestimate a species that turned failure into an art form. All ships, begin power-up sequences. Let's take out the trash. Around the world, hidden beneath piles of apparent junk and disguised as art installations, humanity's recycled fleet hummed to life. The aliens had given Earth a deadline, expecting surrender. Instead, they were about to learn why humans were the galaxy's greatest scrappers. The real question was, would their junkyard engineering be enough to face down the most advanced fleet in the galaxy? They were about to find out, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Trash talk. The moment of truth arrived with all the subtlety of a garbage truck during a meditation retreat. As the alien deadline approached, their massive ships descended toward Earth's major cities, probably expecting to find a defeated civilization ready to surrender. Instead, they found something unprecedented in galactic history, a defense fleet that looked like a traveling scrap metal exhibition. All ships, maintain radio silence, Rex broadcast through their gaming chat-disguised command network. Remember, as far as their sensors are concerned, we're just a bunch of unusually large pieces of junk. Let's keep that illusion going as long as possible. Sarah, Deathblossom, Chen sat at the helm of garbage disposal, her fingers dancing across controls salvaged from 3 different gaming consoles and a defunct DJ mixer. The ship's entire bridge crew looked more like they were preparing for the world's strangest esports tournament than humanity's last stand. The alien flagship, a sleek vessel that probably cost more than Earth's entire GDP to build, took up position over New York. Its commander's holographic image appeared worldwide, tentacles writhing with what looked like smug satisfaction. "Humans," the alien announced, "your time has expired. We see you have made no meaningful attempt to resist. Wise choice. Prepare for immediate integration into the galactic." That's when humanity's junkyard fleet chose to reveal itself. Across the globe, piles of apparent garbage suddenly shed their camouflage. The aliens' first indication that something was wrong came when their sensors registered hundreds of objects rising from Earth's surface, objects their technology insisted were nothing more than collections of primitive materials. "Now that's what I call a plot twist," Rex grinned, watching the alien ship's confused reactions. "All ships, execute Operation Spring Cleaning." Sarah engaged the garbage disposal's main drive, a repurposed Ferris wheel motor combined with gravitational field manipulators built from roller coaster parts. The ship rose with all the grace of a drunken bumblebee, but it rose nonetheless. Around the world, similar scenes played out as humanity's recycled fleet took to the skies. The alien commander's hologram flickered, its tentacles twisting in what might have been confusion. "What is this? Our scans indicate, this is impossible. You're flying using primitive amusement park equipment." "Correction," Rex broadcast on all frequencies, "we're flying using modified primitive amusement park equipment. There's a difference. Allow us to demonstrate." The Rodriguez brothers, manning the weapons station, activated their kitchen sink cannons. The weapons, built from modified microwave parts and old satellite dishes, fired beams of energy that the alien shields didn't know how to handle. It was like trying to use modern antivirus software against a computer virus from the 1980s, sometimes older is better. "Direct hit." Miguel called out, his hands flying across controls that looked suspiciously like repurposed Dance Revolution pads. "Their shields are trying to adapt, but they can't compensate for our, let's call it vintage approach." The alien fleet's response was immediate and predictable, they launched fighters. Sleek, advanced craft streamed from their carriers, their energy weapons blazing. That's when humanity's gaming-trained pilots showed their worth. "Just like Star Raiders," Sarah muttered, throwing the garbage disposal into a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible for something built largely from carnival ride parts. Except with better graphics and actual death. Across the battlefield, other members of humanity's fleet were proving equally surprising. The dumpster fire, true to its name, was using modified garbage compactors to create localized gravity wells that caught alien fighters and crushed them like empty soda cans. Another ship, dubbed Rolling Thunder, had turned old bowling alley equipment into a point defense system that was proving remarkably effective against alien missiles. "They're trying to adapt their shields," Dr. Chen reported from his station, monitoring the battle through screens cobbled together from old smartphones. "But our weapons are too, primitive isn't the right word. Let's say technologically unique." The alien commander's next transmission showed significantly less confidence. "This is impossible. You're violating multiple laws of physics." "Actually," Rex replied, "we're violating multiple laws of physics using equipment you threw away millennia ago. Turns out one species' trash really is another species' treasure." The battle over New York was being mirrored worldwide. In Tokyo, a ship called Pachinko Fury was using modified game machines to generate electromagnetic pulses that scrambled alien targeting systems. Over Moscow, the beat breaker had turned old sound system equipment into sonic weapons that shattered alien fighter cockpits. But the aliens weren't going down easily. They began adapting their tactics, trying to overwhelm Earth's junkyard fleet with sheer numbers. That's when Rex unveiled their secret weapon, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch Fleet. All Pacific units, he broadcast, time to show them why pollution is a terrible thing, especially when it's weaponized. Across the Pacific Ocean, masses of floating garbage suddenly came to life. Dr. Wong's team had turned the world's largest collection of marine debris into stealth ships. The alien sensors, programmed to ignore such primitive materials, didn't register the threat until it was too late. Funny thing about plastic that's been soaking in salt water for decades, Dr. Wong commented as her fleet engaged, it developed some very interesting properties. Especially when you run a few million volts through it. The battle reached its peak over London, where the alien flagship found itself surrounded by what appeared to be a constellation of flying scrapyards. Their advanced sensors were useless, their sophisticated targeting systems confused by the seemingly random movements of ships piloted by people who'd learned space combat from video games. "This isn't combat," the alien commander protested, "this is chaos." "Exactly," Rex replied. "Welcome to humanity's specialty." The Rodriguez brothers chose that moment to demonstrate their latest innovation, a weapon cobbled together from old television parts that turned the aliens' own shield frequencies against them. The result was spectacular, if somewhat reminiscent of a disco party gone wrong. As the battle entered its third hour, something became clear: humanity's junkyard fleet wasn't just holding its own, it was winning. The aliens' sophisticated technology was being defeated by weapons built from garbage, ships powered by repurposed amusement park rides, and pilots who'd learned their skills in arcades. But victory wouldn't be easy. The alien commander, facing the previously unthinkable prospect of defeat by a species that had turned their garbage into a space fleet, was about to unveil their own secret weapon. The question was, could humanity's recycled resistance handle one more surprise? Rex watched the alien flagship's energy reading spike on his jury-rigged sensors. "All ships," he broadcast, "prepare for extreme measures. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for every species that's been called primitive, every civilization that's been judged by its technology rather than its creativity." The final phase of the battle was about to begin, and Earth's fate would be decided not by the most advanced weapons, but by the most innovative use of trash in galactic history. One species is trash. The alien flagship's transformation was something straight out of a sci-fi fan's fever dream. Its sleek hull began shifting, plates realigning as it converted into what could only be described as a cosmic death flower, its petals bristling with enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. "Well," Rex broadcast across the fleet's gaming chat disguised network, "that's definitely not in any of our simulations." "Speak for yourself," Sarah replied from garbage disposal's helm, her hands dancing across their jury-rigged controls. "Looks exactly like the final boss from Stellar Apocalypse 7. The weak points should be in the joint sections between the petals." The alien commander's hologram appeared again, its tentacles writhing with what might have been amusement. "Behold the hegemony's ultimate weapon. Your primitive fleet of recycled materials stands no chance against." "Does anyone else think it's weird how they keep monologuing?" Miguel interrupted from the weapons station. "It's like they learned warfare from watching old cartoons." The alien flagship's transformation complete, it began charging what appeared to be a planet-cracking weapon. Energy readings from their cobbled-together sensors went off the charts, literally, as several of their salvaged smartphone screens cracked under the strain. That's when Dr. Wong's voice cut through the command channel. "Rex. The energy signature, it's the same frequency as a microwave, just amplified about 1,000,000 times." Rex's eyes widened as the pieces fell into place. "Of course. They're not just using advanced versions of our technology, they're using the exact same principles. Dr. Chen, remember that catastrophic failure during the satellite shield test? The one that created a cascade effect? The pigeon incident? Chen's voice crackled through their speakers. How could I forget? We accidentally created a feedback loop that, oh. Exactly, Rex grinned. All ships, execute Operation Microwave Dinner. Around the world, humanity's junkyard fleet began moving into new positions. The alien commander, probably mistaking it for a retreat, laughed. Your primitive vessels cannot escape. Witness the true power of advanced civilization. You know, Rex broadcast back, for an advanced civilization, you really should have paid more attention to studying primitive technology. Like, for instance, what happens when you put metal in a microwave. At his signal, every ship in Earth's fleet activated their modified microwave weapons, the kitchen sink cannons, all tuned to the exact frequency of the alien flagship's weapon. The result was spectacular. The massive energy beam the aliens had been charging suddenly found itself caught in a web of conflicting frequencies. Like a cosmic game of ping-pong, the energy bounced between the improvised weapons, growing more unstable with each reflection. They're trying to shut down their weapon, Dr. Chen reported, watching through their network of recycled sensors. But they can't. The feedback loop is self-sustaining. The alien commander's hologram flickered frantically. This is impossible. You're using cooking equipment as weapons. Modified cooking equipment, Rex corrected. And that's not even the best part. Dr. Wong, how's our Pacific fleet doing? Out in the Pacific Ocean, the fleet of ships built from ocean garbage had moved into position. Years of exposure to salt water and solar radiation had turned the floating trash into the perfect resonance chambers for electromagnetic energy. Ready on your signal, Wong replied. Though I should warn you, we have no idea what'll happen when we amplify the feedback loop this much. We might create a new form of matter. At this point, Rex shrugged, that would only be our third weirdest achievement today. Do it. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch Fleet activated their systems, turning the world's largest collection of marine debris into the galaxy's biggest energy amplifier. The effect was immediate and impossible to ignore. A cascade of electromagnetic energy rippled through space, turning the battlefield into a light show that would have made the Aurora Borealis look like a cheap neon sign. The alien flagship's weapon system, caught in an endless feedback loop of its own energy, began to destabilize. Their shields are failing, Miguel reported from the weapons station. The energy pattern is exactly like when you put aluminum foil in a microwave, just on a cosmic scale. The alien commander's next transmission was less confident. How? How are you doing this with such primitive technology? That's the thing about humans, Rex replied. We don't see primitive technology, we see untapped potential. Also, you really shouldn't have given us time to raid our junkyards. The battle reached its climax as the alien flagship's weapon system overloaded completely. The massive ship's pedals began folding in on themselves, its hull buckling under forces it was never designed to contain. All ships, clear the blast radius. Rex ordered. And someone please tell me we're recording this. The internet is never going to believe it otherwise. The alien fleet, watching their flagship being undone by what amounted to a cosmic-scale kitchen accident, began to retreat. Their sophisticated sensors, finally recognizing the threat posed by humanity's recycled fleet, were registering danger warnings from every piece of Earth's orbital debris. Should we pursue? Sarah asked, her hands hovering over their repurposed game controllers. No need, Rex smiled. I think they've learned their lesson about underestimating primitive species. Besides, we've got a bigger problem to solve. Bigger than an alien invasion? Dr. Chen asked. Much bigger, Rex nodded. We've just proved that properly modified garbage can power spaceships. Now we have to explain to every environmental group on Earth why we turned the Great Pacific Garbage Patch into a fleet of starships. The alien commander's final transmission was brief, the hegemony formally withdraws its integration demand. Your species is clearly too unconventional for our civilization. We'll be updating our classification of Earth from primitive to approach with extreme caution. As the alien fleet retreated, humanity's junkyard armada began the process of returning to Earth. The pilots, gamers, racers, and other assorted misfits who just helped save the planet, were already talking about starting a space program. Think about it, Sarah argued, we've already got the ships. Sure, they're made of garbage, but they work. We could start exploring the galaxy. One step at a time, Rex cautioned, though he was smiling. First, we need to clean up the mess from the battle. Then we can talk about turning more trash into treasure. In junkyards around the world, Earth's improvised fleet landed, their crews celebrating a victory that would rewrite not just history, but humanity's place in the galaxy. They had faced the most advanced civilization in known space and won using nothing but garbage, ingenuity, and a peculiar understanding of how microwaves interact with metal. As news of their victory spread, Rex couldn't help but laugh at the headlines: Earth defeats aliens with power of recycling, and garbage fleet saves planet, environmentalists confused. The alien invasion had taught humanity several valuable lessons. First, never underestimate the potential of trash. Second, video games were apparently excellent training for space combat. And third, sometimes the best way to advance civilization wasn't to develop new technology, but to look at old technology in new ways. Standing in his junkyard, now officially designated as Earth's first recycled spaceship factory, Rex watched the sun set on humanity's first day as a recognized spacefaring civilization. They had a lot of work ahead of them, but also an unlimited supply of raw materials in every landfill and junkyard on Earth. So, Dr. Chen asked, joining him with 2 cups of coffee, what do we do now? Rex took a sip from his cup, looking at the countless piles of potential spacecraft parts surrounding them. Now we show the galaxy why you should never throw anything away. After all, one species' trash is another species' interstellar fleet. As night fell, the lights of 1,000 junkyards lit up around the world, each one now a beacon of humanity's most unique contribution to galactic civilization, the art of turning yesterday's garbage into tomorrow's starships. The age of recycled space exploration had begun, and Earth's junkyards would never be the same.